Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Sporemon. I'm Jack, and today we're going to be going over the next four lines of single stage evolutions. Got quite a few to get through today, so let's get started. First off is Flumenceles, another Latin based name. This is the schooling Sporemon, because it's a smaller fish that would school. Some light blues, a lot of finnage, pretty small, a pure water type. Stats across the board all very poor except for speed, which is actually really good. Not much use to this. It would be very early game and really couldn't do too much. However, its ability is School. After 5 turns in battle, all of its stats except speed are multiplied by 5. So this is actually huge. Very similar to Wishy Washy from Pokemon. It's after plenty of turns, it'll eventually its stats will get much better. 5 turns is a lot. I don't know if this thing could really survive 5 turns in any battle, but if it can, let's see, it's multiplied by 5. So except speed, okay. HP is 150. That's really good. Uh, Attack would be what 75. So defense, both pretty good, not super useful. Special attack, however, would now be 125, which is definitely quite good. It's certainly usable. Special defense 50, not great, and then speed would stay the same. So its stats would definitely get a lot better. Not fantastic actually, but for an earlier game Pokemon or Sporemon, if you could actually get it to last 5 turns of battle, it could definitely do some damage. Moving on to Yucca Latesco, a water and dark type, based off of sort of a crocodile, I suppose. He's got the arms and the tail fin, some spikes, very dark coloring. He's the ambush predator Sporemon. HP, fine, attack, defense. Attack and the physical and special departments are the same, and speed not great. So I would say early game or like early to mid early game. This could be great, definitely very useful. Jack of all trades could get you a lot done, but it wouldn't be useful for that long. Its ability is surprise attack. When attacking first on the first turn, do double damage. So wow, um, if you're just fighting like wild and the speed is lower, then you could get some serious damage off to some early games. Its speed's not great, so the actual likelihood of attacking first isn't fantastic. But if you are facing some smaller ones, this could do great for you. All right, moving on to Rursus tantum. This is the tree flower Sporemon, a grass and fairy type. Oh, so this is a bit of an interesting sort of pose. His main body here with his hands out, this would be attaching to a tree. You can see he's got some suction cups. So if you can imagine there's a tree here that he's holding on to, and then his head is actually sticking out this way. So this is really um, the front of what it would look like. He's got flowers on either side. Let's see his stats. Immediate standout is special defense. That would be really good for early game. You wouldn't take hardly any damage from early game special attacks. Special attack is also pretty good. Physical category is pretty bad on both, so you wouldn't want to be using those much. Speed is also really low, so he's not going to be able to attack first hardly ever. His ability is Long Tongue. All of his moves do double damage against bug types. So being a grass type, being able to do more damage to bug types would actually be fantastic for him. Especially early game, that could definitely help him out. A lot of bright coloring, our first real different stance that we've seen, and let's go ahead and move on. Next up is Piscanter Solvit, a water and grass type. He's the floating Pokemon, Sporemon. Sorry. So you can see he would be floating on the ground with all of his limbs outstretched. Looks like he's looking down into the water to try to catch a fish. He's got a bit of a tail fin as well and a crest. As far as stats go, HP is actually 75, which is probably higher than I should have gave him at the time. He's not very big, but if that is his HP, that's quite good. Definitely more of a special sort of user, but stats, none of them super good. Speed's also quite on the low side, which is unfortunate. His ability is Pescivore, so when he's fighting a water type, all damage is doubled. So that's definitely very useful for fighting a water type, but against any other types, wouldn't be great, especially with the grass type. He'd be able to do massive stab special damage to water types, but otherwise, not super useful. Next up is Simics Lingua, which I think lingua has something to do with tongue, but I'm not sure what else that name means. This is the Dart Frog Sporemon. He's a poison type, pure poison. He's got the two strong legs there with a tail with some kind of spiky poison launcher of sorts. He's got some really large face fins, maybe gills of some sort, and then a nice head crest. And he's also got some very vibrant coloring. Stats, again, no super standouts, good speed. This is an early game special attacker. Sort of another jack of all trades. Early game ones, the stats don't tend to differ nearly as much as later game ones. And his ability is Poison Skin. When he's hit by a physical move, poisons his enemy, and that's a 100% chance. So this thing could actually be a great staller. You throw it in, it gets hit by a physical attack once, use its good speed to do some special attacks, could do some really good damage early game. All right, moving on to Paluscata. This is a dragon and ghost type. This is also labeled as the fossil Sporemon. So probably would be resurrected from a fossil of some sort. He's got some really gnarly back spikes, some pretty thick armor, some good nose armoring there, and a nose crest. 4 eyes, actually, and some pretty large appendages. This thing could probably do some serious damage. Let's look at the stats. HP, pretty good. Attack, pretty good. Defense, pretty good. Special attack, pretty good. Special defense, pretty good. It's all across the board, except for really speed. The stats are good. If you got this early mid game, it would definitely be really useful for a while. It probably wouldn't survive much in late game, but like I said, mid game could do well. Let's see the ability. This is Bone Crusher. When he's landing a physical attack, decrease the target's speed by 1 stage. So that could actually sort of negate its poor speed if it could slow its target down enough to eventually outspeed it. So that's actually, for mid game, I would say this is a great pick. All right, moving on to Lignum Mordair. This is the Lumber Sporemon, a pure rock type. Some pretty large a large beefy build with some pretty serious defensive plating and some really large mandibles actually. Pure, like I said, pure rock. His HP is quite good. Attack, defense, both really good. And then special attack and special defense are actually really on the low side. And speed, not great. So really, you get this early mid game. It's going to be a serious tank. This is almost the definition of a tank, really, with high defense, attack, HP, and low speed, special attack, and special defense. And let's see his ability. Wood Chopper. Deal double damage against grass types. Great. So one of the rock type's main weaknesses is mostly negated there if he can get off a strong enough attack before taking too much damage. So definitely could be quite useful for mid-game. All right, moving on to Crucenater. This is the Bone Sporemon, a ghost and ground type. So he's clearly covered in all kinds of external bones, sort of cow-like in appearance otherwise, a big defense plate on the back. He's got some purple on him for the ghost type. But yeah, serious set of horns just all over him. HP, good. Attack, pretty good. Defense, really good. Special attack and special defense, both fine. And then speed, pretty bad. So this is going to be a mid-game tank, just like the last one, with a bit more even of stats. So he's much less likely to die from a special defense or from a special attack, and then also doesn't deal quite as much damage. His ability is Brittle Bones. When he's hit by a physical attack, his defense decreases by 1 stage and speed rises by 1. So this is a simple idea of when he's hit by an attack, one of these would break off, meaning he can move faster because he's not as slowed down, but his defense is also lower because he doesn't have as much armor. So as the battle progresses, he's going to become less defensive, so he's going to take more damage, but his speed is going to rise, allowing him to hit quicker. So it could be an interesting battle strategy with this guy. All right, moving on to Clavo Venari. This is a dark and flying type, the Pounce Sporemon. Let's see if I can get him to stand up here. There we go. Some very dark coloring. He's got wings, some pouncing legs, and a nice tail flap there, as well as some very large, bright orange eyes. So, like I said, a dark and flying type. Stats, special defense, definitely best, which is certainly useful. Attack is also pretty good. So this is a late early game, and I'd say it would do quite well, especially with high speed. It could dish out some pretty serious attacks, and then be a bit of a special defense tank. So his ability is surprise attack. When attacking first on the first turn, deal double damage. So we've seen this ability before, but on this one I would say it's much better considering his high speed and attack. So you can do massive damage on the first turn, and early game he's going to outspeed almost everything you come across. So this could be a serious asset to have during early game. Next up is Ictusaeli. That's a difficult one. The Steam Rocket Sporemon, a water and fire type. Is this our first fire type? I think it is. I believe it's the first fire type that we've seen. Based off of a shark as well as, I suppose, a pufferfish, you can see he would intake water through these holes here, turn it into steam inside himself, and then blast it out the rocket at the end. Definitely looks like he could go very fast. Yeah, speed is super high on this one. As far as stats go, nothing is super good. Both of his attack stats are actually pretty usable. So I'd say with that high speed, he gets off some quick attacks. That could be quite useful, but not great defensively. So don't want to be taking too much damage. His ability is Steam Rocket. When he's hit by a fire type move, its speed and attack increases by 1 stage. So not a great ability considering he has a 4 times resistance to fire. But if he does happen to be hit by a fire move, you are definitely going to increase his his best stats. So that could definitely be useful. All right, moving on to, we have 2 lines left, and this is going to be Magna Mordair, a dragon and dark type. This is the Dark Claw Sporemon. So we got some dark green coloring with some purple accents. As far as stats go, I'd say early middle game, he's got some quite good stats with that really good attack stat and pretty good speed. Serviceable defense, not great, and then pretty good special attack too. So he could attack most anything. His ability is Dragon Energy. When using a Dragon type move, its speed increases by 1 stage. Great. So you hit off some physical Dragon type moves, its speed goes up. This could be a great uh, offensive sweeper in the attack category. All right, moving on to Hasta Mangus. This is the Nocturnal Sporemon, a grass and dark type. So this is another one that would be gripping onto a tree and then jumping off of it from there. He's got a attack whip-like claw on his tail and some greenery all over him. As far as stats go, special defense is best, and then next comes attack. And with decent speed, he could do some decent damage. I'd say this is late early to early mid sort of game Sporemon. His ability is Canopy Cover, shrouds area in darkness, lowering accuracy of all non-dark types. So his opponent is immediately going to have his accuracy load, which is actually a great asset to this Sporemon considering his really low defense. So there's a chance his opponent's going to miss every turn, and he could utilize his high speed and decent attack to return some damage after hopefully dodging whatever attack is coming at him. Next up is Loligo Jellius. This is the Toxic Sporemon, a water and poison type. Based off of mostly an octopus, he's got a bunch of legs, a very large, robust body, and then a lot of all kinds of tubes and poison sprayers all over his body that I would imagine could dispense toxic gas or sludge. So, as far as stats go, definitely heavier on the special sort of side with honestly really good special attack and special defense. This is probably a late mid game Sporemon, I'd imagine. Physical stats, not great. You're not going to be physically attacking much, and you don't want to take too many physical hits. But with that HP, high special defense, he could definitely be a special tank. This is actually the definition of a special tank. high HP, high special attack and special defense, and then low speed, low attack, and low defense. His ability is Toxic Fumes, meaning he instantly poisons any Sporemon in battle with it. A great attribute or ability to have for a special tank, I would say. He can stall really well, especially if the opponent uses primarily special attacks. All right, moving on to Fulgurangus. Some of these names are really challenging me. This is a pure electric type. This is the Lightning Sporemon. He's definitely snake based. He's got some sort of frills on the side with some crystals on top. I'd imagine these are probably like Tesla coil crystals with energy zapping in between them. A lot of yellows and light blue. All right, not huge with, yeah, not great HP. As far as stats go, his speed is actually incredible. This is by far the fastest we've seen so far at 195 speed. The only things faster than it would be something with 200 speed or a boosted speed stat in battle. So this thing is basically going to outspeed everything early game. And it's definitely early game because its stats are not great, best being a special attack of 55. Its ability is Tesla Coil. After using an electric type move, its attack increases by 1 stage. So its attack is pretty low, but you use a bunch of special electric type moves, eventually that attack could be pretty good. And then you could have some really fast stab electric moves, both physical attack and special attack. All right, next up is Nentnoobs. Maybe Nenoobs? Silent T? This is another poison and water type. It's the Toxic Water Sporemon. Pretty small. I think he's got some poison nodes on his belly there with a tail, back fin, fins, little defense helmet, some antenna, looks like, and a single eye. HP, fine. Attack, really bad, actually. He's never going to be physically attacking. All of his stats are actually quite bad, except speed, which is pretty good for early game. Definitely a very early game. Not going to be super useful. You could get some decent special attacks out, and that's about it. However, his ability is Poison Waters. All moves do 150% damage against a poisoned target. Ah, I see. So basically, he's got the Venoshock ability where if he already poisons a target, then all of his moves are going to do 50% more damage. So that definitely could help out. You could do some heavier special attacks with that. More like 60 special attack after a poisoned target. All right, and the last line of this video. First off is Radium Spica. This is the spring-loaded Sporemon, a water and grass type. I'd imagine this thing would sit right beneath the water line on the coast of like a lake, and then wait for something to come up to the side of the lake and spring out of the water with its nose spike. So definitely an ambush predator based off of crocodile with some back fins here and a lot of foliage on top, probably for camouflage. As far as stats go, attack is quite good. Special attack also quite good. Defense is not great. Special defense is fine. And speed also not great, but serviceable. His ability is Amphibious Striker. Gives priority to water type moves. Right. So if this thing uses a water type move, it's probably going to be moving first, which makes sense considering its ambush predator ability. So with that decent attack, it can get off some really fast water type moves, stab water type moves, and could do some decent damage. Next up is Album Versus. This is a rock and ice type. This is also the Arctic Sporemon. Some greens, some white, and some dark blue. He's got a very heavily armored body and head with some serious horns there. And also a tail club. That seems like he could do some pretty good damage. He's not huge, but definitely an early game tank, I would say. Or maybe, yeah, late early game tank, I would say. With uh, decent HP, pretty good attack, really good defense, and then really bad special attack and special defense. So yeah, definitely a physical early game tank with pretty low speed. His ability is Freezer, which means defense increases by 1 stage each turn. Speed decreases by 1 stage. Right. Uh, so he's basically just going to become more of a tank each turn, being able to take more and more physical hits, but hitting slower and slower. So if you're going up against a heavy physical attacker, this is probably going to be a good bet. As long as it's not a fighting type, because Rock and Ice is 4 times weak to that. Next up is Salinater. This is the Walrus Sporemon, a ground and water type. You definitely see the front limbs propping himself up on land. He's used to being in the water. Got some back fins as well as the big tail, some armor, some pretty decent armor, some rough looking skin, 3 large horns, pretty big mouth, and some armored eyes. As far as stats go, I'd imagine he's a bit of a tank. Not a great tank. His speed is really low. Special moves are also very low, and then attack and defense are not great, but his HP is actually really good. So sort of a tank. He's not great in the stats department though. His ability is good swimmer. When using a water type move, multiply attack by 1.5 and speed by 3. So this is basically gaining 1 attack stage and then like 3 or 4 speed stages, which is definitely going to help him out a whole lot. The more he uses water type moves, the better he's going to get. You get off maybe 3, then he's going to be really fast. Well, pretty fast. His speed's not great, but it'll end up being quite fast and being able to hit pretty hard. But he's going to have a bit of a slow start. Hopefully that HP, though, will allow him to tank some hits until he gets stronger. All right, 2 left. Next up is Maulwing, one of our first not Latin types. We've had, or not Latin names. We've had a couple up until now, but we're going to start moving out of the Latin names here soon. He is the Stalker Sporemon, a dark and flying type. As far as stats go, speed pretty good, attack pretty good, special defense pretty good. So he's going to be a fast physical attacker who's going to be able to tank some special defense hits. His ability is Expert Hunter. His attacks never miss, and he gets a critical hit more often. So that's great. No matter how low his accuracy is, he will always hit his attacks, which could definitely be good against an enemy that likes to lower attack. And critical hits landing more often, meaning his attack stat is actually going to be, on average, much higher. You're going to be able to get some good pounces in for sure. A lot of eyes, bright orange again, and some frills, a really frilly tail, some large feathery wings, and some thin but large legs with claws. Next up, and final for this video, is Claralux. This is the Hulking Sporemon, a ground and dark type. He's very large, one of the biggest we've had so far, with an HP of 165. Attack is quite good, defense is pretty good, special attack's pretty good, and special defense is pretty good. And then decent speed. So he's got really good stats. Sort of an jack of all trades kind of tank. I'd say late mid game is when you'd be getting this guy, maybe early late even. His ability is Muscular. After using a physical attack, attack gets boosted by 1 stage. Double use per battle. Okay, that's interesting. So when he uses a physical attack, his attack will get better, but he can only do it twice. So he definitely end up hitting very hard after just using 2 attacks. Okay, and with that, that is the end of episode 4 of Sporemon. In the next episode, we're going to start going over these next few, which are all strings of 5, all a part of one evolutionary line. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.